What are the best hand traps in Yu-Gi-Oh right now? Big dog, Infinite Forbidden has changed so much about this Yu-Gi-Oh card game, and today I'm going to be giving you my insight on what are going to be the very best hand traps moving forward, as well as information about important hand traps that you play right now. Now, I'm not going to cap, I wanted to talk about board breaker Yu-Gi-Oh cards too because they're so important, but to be honest with you, I couldn't. There is way too many hand traps and board breakers that we have to go in detail, but if you want to see a video like that, go ahead and let me know down below in the comment section. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on in. All right, big dog, so the criteria is incredibly simple for this tier list. I'm going to be ranking the strongest hand traps in the game post Infinite Forbidden. Of course, I got my chat here who ironically brought us here and made me talk about certain hand traps on this tier list because you guys want to hear about stuff like doors. Let's go ahead and jump on it and start off with Ally of Justice Cycle Reader. This card is really good at hitting multiple light monsters in the graveyard, but the only unfortunate thing is that the best light strategy right now is Voiceless Voice. The most anticipated with Infinite Forbidden, maybe Try. I don't think too strongly of those particular decks. I would have to put Ally of Justice in Copium, unless you are seeing those decks in abundance at your local level area. Do not play this card. The same thing would go with Artifact Lancia. These two cards have been historically not good Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and unfortunately that trend will continue. Being able to prevent your opponent from banishing cards could be crazy good, but when you consider that some of the best decks in the game don't revolve around a need to banish cards and can still OTK you under that premise, this isn't a great Yu-Gi-Oh card. Granted, I guess it could be good against decks like Phantom Knights, but I don't expect to see many Phantom Knights. I guess Lancia would be good against Ritual Beast in current Yu-Gi-Oh, but I think it's best that you reserve those slots for a different deck or just side better cards that have a bigger coverage. Still not worth playing unless the only thing you go against is Ritual Beast. I don't see Blackwing. I'm unsubbing. Blackwing isn't a hand trap, goofy. Next is Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, big dog, which I've had some pretty big bold takes about this card. I like to think of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring like the longtime girlfriend that you guys never had. You think that it's really good, but in essence, you realize that if you were to ever get her, you'll never get her, so we don't need to talk about that. No, but in all seriousness, I think that Ash Blossom is dependent on what decks do you respect. Do you respect decks like Tenpai Dragon, Branded, and Labyrinth? If the answer is yes, then you play Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. If you're absolutely disrespectful to those decks, then you probably consider siding Ash if not playing it. Regardless, I think it's a solid choice. Ash is being played because it has solid coverage against all of the matchups in the game right now, not because it's actually a game-ending Yu-Gi-Oh card. Keep that in mind when you're building your deck. Next are the Bestial Monsters. The Bestial Monsters are in a very interesting situation, right? And the reason why I say this is because Bestials are incredibly good against Fiendsmith. Being able to banish Engraver of the Fiendsmith can really help you with slowing down their combo, if not stopping them. It can even banish Fable Lori, which prevents them from going into combo as well. The problem is, how many broke players can afford Fiendsmith? This is one of them ones, chat. It's really, really tough. I'll do questionable things for Fiendsmith cards. I need to be ready for that. Bro. No. Dude's feeding for a Smith. Overall, I think the Bestial Monsters are pretty good in the sideboard. I'm not sure if I would mainboard them unless I'm playing it in a Yu-Gi-Oh deck that can dedicate itself to Bestial Monsters and actually benefit from them. Chaos Hunter is another one of those Copium cards. It's not really, it's actually worse than Artifact Lancia, mainly because there's so many ways to get over this card. So I definitely would not play it. And Contact C. So the good thing about Contact C is that it gives your opponent a monster and they can't do anything with it unless they use that card first. This is incredibly good against... You guys got to help me out here. Chat, what is this good against? They don't even have to be real Fiendsmith cards. I'll take proxies. Ryan, stop. Stop. Stun? I don't think it'd be good against Stun. Ritual Beast? Maybe? Branded. If they don't play the correct card, it is good against Branded. I would still put Contact C in Copium. I don't think that it's worth playing. Now, here's something that you guys may not see coming. DD Crow is actually a lot stronger than what a lot of people are giving it credit. It's similar to the Bestial Monsters, but not limited. Instead of just hitting light and dark monsters, DD Crow can hit all types of cards including spells or traps. You guys may not know, but DD Crow is actually a solid choice. I think right now having the ability to be able to check Fiendsmith cards, but also being able to double back to hit other cards in the game is incredibly important. The versatility of being able to hit critical Snake Eyes cards as well as Fiendsmith and other cards alike is really, really good. Dimensional Shifter. So with Fiendsmith introduced, I normally had Dimensional Shifter somewhere right here, but I think it's safe to go and put Dimensional Shifter in a must-play deck. There is a caveat to Shifter though. This card is only really good in Ritual Beast. I don't think that there's many other decks that can compete. Well, no, I'm lying. There's like Fluendereese and stuff like that. Those are pretty good strategies. Any other strategies, chat? Tenpai? Oh, Tenpai is good. I think also with the rise of other hand traps that D-Shifter is really good. Like our players are going to be playing Droll and Lockbird. The card is incredible, not only against the Tenpai engine, but against a lot of strategies, especially if they're starting first. For example, Snake Eyes players have stopped using Wanted in the draw phase and have started using it in the main phase. That's one additional search that can be Droll and Lockbird. I think right now, Droll and Lockbird is a must-play hand trap. It should be the second or third hand trap you should be playing inside of your deck. We're ironically in a situation where players don't respect Droll and Lockbird enough. The card is really good and should be considered. I think Effect Veiler is a solid choice right now. There's going to be a lot of chances or opportunities where Effect Veiler doesn't do enough, but you still have to play the card because if you don't, then their opponent still gets the effect. And with Fantastical Dragon Phantasme, I think this card is an excellent sideboard Yu-Gi-Oh card. You probably could get away with playing it in the main deck since almost every single Yu-Gi-Oh deck link summons. And I'll let you know about a secret of Tenpai. It's a link deck. People are legitimately playing certain strategies completely wrong. If you can link summon, you probably should be link summoning. And that's why Fantastical Dragon Phantasme is so powerful. Bestial Shifter goes crazy. Baddest Shifter, activate Shifter again. I hate it here. Next is Psyframe Gear Gamma. I think the biggest problem with Gamma is that it's at 1. But I think if you are playing that 1 copy of Psyframe Gear Gamma and you draw it over the driver, then you're cooking. Genuinely a card that can come out and do a lot of damage because nobody sees it coming, and it can destroy the monster too. And if you think about it, if you play 3 copies of Driver in 1 Gamma, you're gonna draw the Gamma consistently because that's what we used to do back in the day when we drew the Driver. Gamma is a sleeper. Just because Ritual Beast can make the Psyframe link and use it, they can. I think Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit is a side-worthy card. It's really good against decks like Yubel, but it's not good against smart Tenpai Dragon players and Snake Eyes. Also, this is a hand trap that doesn't do enough in certain matchups that it would be good against. I think you guys are sleeping on the spooky Dogwood. It's... Chat, I'm not coping. I'm not coping. It definitely is a sleeper. Think about it. Think about it. A Fiendsmith Snake Eyes player's turn will take good 38 minutes, chat. All you have to do is mainboard the Dogwood, and you're gonna gain 50 gajillion life points. You're not losing. This used to be our out to Zealantis. The Zealantis OTK could not OTK through Dogwood. Dogwood is funny when a Snake Eyes player gives you 10,000 life points. I refuse to say that this card is just complete copium right now. I may be coping though, let me know. Gores is a card that you guys have me talk about. Yeah, you gotta play Gores, right? Like, that's good, right? Drop the subs, chat. I said Gores is a must play. Nah, in all actuality, yeah, let's not play Gores. I also think that Ghost Mourner is not a good card either. I think in a lot of situations, Ghost Mourner won't be able to activate its effect. Branded players, if they play it correctly, they can just use Branded and Lost to chain block their Albion. Against Snake Eyes players, Poplar is chain linked too, so you can't Ghost Spell them. I legitimately can't think of too many situations where Ghost Spell is a great card. And if you guys have noticing, a lot of people have been dropping it out of their main boards and their sideboards for a ton of deck lists. I think that follows up with Infinite Forbidden. You guys are also going to be like really surprised on where I put some other cards too. Swift Scarecrow is also copium. You guys told me to talk about this, but unfortunately Tenpai Dragon can prevent you from using this. Almost the exact same thing with Battle Fader. Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill. You guys are going to be surprised. I'm going to put Ghost Mourner and Copium too. So let's talk about the real cards that are like playable that I think are copium, which is Ghost Mourner and Ghost Bell. I want to be 100% straightforward when I say this. I don't think that these cards are bad cards. They're worlds better than these cards. But these 2 cards are going to have some serious problems. items. Ghost Mourner does not stop the normal summon, where if you go in against decks like Yugioh, you really want to stop their normal summon. Ghost Mourner starts to also lose its potency when you go against Fiendsmith, and it can create its own board while dodging Ghost Mourner. If you ever tried to Ghost Mourner a Fiendsmith Link, you will regret it. The biggest reason why players were on Ghost Mourner inside of their decks is because we had 9 ways of effect negation to be able to stop a Snake Eyes board, which means it allowed us to be able to combat Snake Eyes Ash as well as Diabellstar. But now that they have a whole nother engine to play alongside of their deck, it makes these cards infinitely worse and puts Ghost Mourner in a really tough spot. Again, I don't think that these cards are terrible. I would strongly consider against playing these cards inside of my main board right now. All right, back to the bad hand traps. Winter Cherries is still bad. It doesn't matter that you can hit the same cards as your opponent. It's just not worth it. No materials, still bad. This whole Copium tier might actually go into a whole nother bracket. Infinite Impermanence is still probably the best hand trap going into Infinite Forbidden, just because it can activate from the hand as a board breaker too. Molcharmi Pirelli. Players think that Molcharmi Pirelli is the next Maxi, and I have to say that this card, you really couldn't be further from the truth. Pirelli can only be activated when you have no cards on the field and allows you to draw a card when your opponent summons from the hand. That's not good enough. There's probably a couple of decks where you would be able to draw a lot of cards, but if you just so happen to have 6 more cards than your opponent has on their field, then you have to randomly get rid of cards. I think that this card would have been really good if it allowed you to mix and match your hand, but randomly getting rid of cards is kind of crazy. This is good in maybe going second decks and maybe against Flu. I think that this is a side-worthy Yu-Gi-Oh card at best right now. I would say that it isn't the format for Molcharmi Pirelli right now, but in the future when we get a card or a deck that summons a ton from the hand, it might be a lot better. Sprite does that? Oh, it is good against Sprite. You're right, but are we really preparing for Sprite? Heavenly Zephyr Miradoria is Copium. Herald of Orange Light is a must play if you can play a deck that supports this. It's Infinite Impermanence and Effect Veiler, except it actually gets rid of the threat. It's a genuine card that handles situations. I think Nibiru the Primal Being is in a very weird spot. Nib is already outed by the Fiendsmith engine before you can get into it, and a lot of strategies like Yubel also have protections against those particular situations. If we're going to reduce the level of effect negations that we have against Snake Eyes, then Nib is also weaker too. I think at best, Nib would be side-worthy. If you're going against high-tier competition, your opponent is going to be more than likely respecting Nib, which means it's not going to be a great card. I think Psyframe Delta is a sleeper pick. Shout out to us getting it as a super rare. This card stops really important spell cards, which there's a lot of important spell cards, and you really need to watch out for this card. I think it's solid. Skullmeister actually has some things that it can do that Ghost Spell can't. The first is that it can be used to stop effects like Fabled Lord in the graveyard. The best thing is that it could be used to stop effects like Flame Urge and Fabled Lord. But I think the true value of this card is actually to stop the Fiendsmith Link monsters and Fiendsmith Tractus from being able to fuse. Kind of like I said before with Ghost Bell, Snake Eyes would chain block their Flame Urge, but against some of the other cards that we just mentioned, this card works freely and generically and can hit cards that activate in the graveyard, where Ghost Bell can't hit certain cards. I'm gonna say sleeper. It's good against some niche interactions that I would want to do a little bit more investigating in. They could come up to be huge situations or huge interactions. The new trap card, Dominus Purge, allows you to be able to activate this card from your hand if your opponent controls a card, and then negates a card effect of your opponent adding a card to the hand. If you have a trap card in your graveyard, you can destroy it. The only drawback is that you can't use fire, dark, or water effects for the rest of the duel. I like cards like this because it's support for some of the underdog archetypes. Another Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring for decks that may not be able to take advantage of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. I'm gonna put it in sleeper. The reason why I put it in sleeper is because we do still have Ash Blossom, so this card is almost useless for most decks, but I can see a situation where this card can be searched through maybe a trap trick to gain its effects, or if you just set it to your side of the field, you're not locked as well. Seems like a really solid card. And lastly, a card that you guys have suggested, Typhoon. Typhoon is interesting because it can be activated from your hand when your opponent has 2 or more spell cards on the field and destroys one of them. I can think of a ton of times where our opponent will have 2 or more spell cards on the field and you can destroy one of them. Take, for example, if they activate the effect of Nightmare Pain and then follow up with their field spell. You can destroy the field spell of the Nightmare Pain. Against Snake Eyes, there's tons of opportunities where they have multiple spell cards on the field. This card plays around Appaloosa. It plays around most effect negation cards. I think that this card is somewhat of a sleeper. Tenpai does it too. Tenpai does have times where they'll have multiple spell cards. Voiceless as well. Yo, this card's kind of crazy. I think that Typhoon could be good in the dedicated deck. I'm not 100% sure about it, but I would like to get some more testing with it. And lastly is Saravis. There's going to be a little less targeting inside of the deck. I think if you're not playing Voiceless Voice, Saravis is not worth playing. It is 100% that copium. And that's all that I have for the hand trap tier list, guys. Let me know what you think about this post Infinite Forbidden. Is there some cards that I missed, or if there's something that I got wrong or right? Of course, I hope you guys are enjoying your day. Be sure to check out these videos so I can catch you on the next one.